Hey there, it's Olivia-Savannah here from Olivia's Catastrophe, and today it is my birthday. Well, not the day that I'm filming this, but the day that you see this, I will be turning 24. What I like to do on my birthday on my channel is make a video that is entirely something that I want to make, whether that is something entirely not to do with books, whether that's entirely something niche, just a video that's not my standard content, but I want to make it anyway. And today, what I'm going to be doing is tier ranking all of the performances that I watched in 2022. So I am someone who, as you know, I love books. And if you follow me on Instagram, you'll see that my love of books kind of extends into the arts. I just love the creative arts in general, whether that's music, whether that's theatre, whether that's film and TV. I just love all forms of creativity. And so one of my favourite things to do is to go to the theatre, go to an orchestra, go to a ballet. I just love it. And I tallied up what I saw in 2022 and I went and saw 16 different performances on stage. So I'm going to rank them here and I just want to talk about them for a bit and share the love for things that I've watched and really enjoyed. And that is going to be my birthday video for this year. I hope you enjoy. Let's do it! So you should be able to see everything here, and we've got right here at the start we've got a ballet. So this is not in chronological order, clearly. And this ballet here is Romeo and Juliet. I went to see Romeo and Juliet with my sister and it was a very good time. I loved it. So it was a bit of a probably stressful performance for some of the ballet people because COVID was kind of on the rise at the time, and so the person who played Mercutio was ill and couldn't do it, and the person who we saw perform Mercutio had 24 hours to learn the role, and he was amazing. Everybody was watching him. He didn't do a single misstep. It was almost like he'd been made to play the role the whole time. He was also black, so it was just lovely to see a black Mercutio in ballet. Honestly, great. Our Romeo and our Juliet were amazing. You could feel the passion between them. Seeing the ballet, it was beautiful, it was gorgeous. All of the sword fights were epic. I do think it might have been my favourite ballet that I saw last year. And I'm going to put it in an amazing performance because it truly was an amazing performance. The costume, the stage, it was all just effortlessly and fantastically done, and I love Shakespeare, so of course I knew the story inside out, and it was just so nice to see it play in a ballet. So the next thing I have here is a picture of Nina Simone, and that is a stand-in for a one-woman play that I went to see with a fellow booktube creator, and it was just about Nina Simone's life, and it was just one woman giving the performance, kind of talking about her experiences with her father and trying to make it in music. And she also sang a few of Nina Simone's songs. I really love Nina Simone's music. She was an amazing creator and her voice is just absolutely beautiful. Her songs are amazing, and I'm going to put this in the enjoyable category because I thought it was very good. It was also a small production, so it was just like one woman in the back of a pub kind of situation, but it was just really lovely. The singing was good. She managed to capture the style and the way of talking that Nina Simone truly had. But it still wasn't my favourite thing that I saw last year, so I'm going to just put it in the enjoyable category. And Juliet. Okay, and Juliet, I had the lowest, not like the lowest of low expectations, but I had really low expectations. It's a jukebox musical, and the premise is, what if Aunt Juliet did not kill herself after she found out that Romeo was dead? What if she decided to continue and live her life, and what would her life have looked like? And so when I heard this was a jukebox musical, my interest dropped. At first I was like, what? That premise sounds great, I want to see it. And then I heard it's got pop songs in it as the song sequences, and I was like, nah. And I was being a bit snobby about it, not gonna lie. Then I went to see it because my best friend came to London and I said, musicals and theatre are great, we should definitely go and see a performance. I think these are ones that you might enjoy, and I included Aunt Juliet in that range even though I hadn't seen it. Like, the premise just sounded like something she could enjoy, and she chose it, and I was like, okay, now I'm gonna see it. And it was just, it was amazing. It was amazing. I just, wow, the songs were so good, and the songs were one of the best parts of it. And since then I have had that soundtrack on repeat. It was one of my most listened to albums in 2022 because the way that they took these pop songs and interwove it into the story of post Romeo and Juliet in a way that made sense and actually worked towards the plot was iconic. And it still managed to capture so many of the Shakespeare elements that you love in Shakespeare's plays, because while the subject matter itself is focusing on Juliet as a character, it also challenges some of the social standards that, of course, Shakespeare did in his time. It talks about feminism, it talks about sexism, it talks about homophobia and things like that. And it manages to do that in a way that is seamless, fits into the story that they've created. It's hilarious. I laughed so much. The person who plays Juliet, or the original cast for it, just absolutely phenomenal. Her voice is absolutely amazing. If you listen to the soundtrack, you will be blown away by her fantastic vocals. And I just think the vocals all together, not only her but all of the other characters, but also the backup performances, the way that they perform the songs just sounds really stunning vocally. I loved it. The costumes are really nice, and Shakespeare as a character is there on stage, and Anne Hathaway is also there on stage as a character, and Shakespeare and Anne Hathaway have their own storyline about their marriage and their life, which harkens back to some of the Shakespeare things, and there's Shakespeare jokes. They age up all the characters, so Juliet is not as young as she is in the play, which works well for the story, but it's just kind of refreshing to see as well. What more can I say? It was actually just one of the best things I watched in theatre last year, and it's just going straight into would rewatch in a heartbeat. I really would. Which leads me right on to the next one, which is a photo, because this is from Breathing by Numbers, how do I describe it? So this one was shown in Brixton House, which is in Brixton in South London, and this is like a house that really puts on a lot of Black created productions, and so they're shorter runs usually, but they're not lacking in quality whatsoever. So this combines film, choir, spoken word poetry and dance and music. And so it started with a video which was kind of almost a short documentary about a woman who is talking about her daughter. And she's a Black woman, she is a Black working woman, she works in a school, and her daughter is the first one to ever have pollution written on her death certificate as the cause of death. Her daughter dies because of the pollution that she experiences living next to a main road. And she's talking about the ways in which society and people and climate has failed her as someone who has worked, who has paid her taxes, who has given her all to her life, and then this is what happens to her child. And she's talking about that, and then after that video ends, the choir comes in, and yeah, from then on it's just a weaving of dance, the choir singing and spoken word poetry, and a lot of it is about what it means to be Black in the UK and what it means to be racialized as a person in the UK. And I transcended to another plane. I was somewhere else. I was not in this world, because it struck a chord. I felt so seen, and often when I feel seen, it mostly just happens in books, and very few books, but a few books where I feel like, wow, this is me, this has got me. But usually when you see that, you see an element of yourself, you just see a part of yourself. But in this performance, throughout all the different modes it went into, I saw all the parts of me, and it was kind of scary and kind of, you can't comprehend it when you see all of yourself in something, but I truly did, and that is what led me to just being removed from my body and into another plane of existence. And towards the end, there's a part that really stuck to me, which is when the choir kind of wove in All I Want to Say Is That They Don't Really Care About Us by Michael Jackson into what was going on with the spoken word and the singing and everything. And that part, I was just like, and there you have it. It has reached the climax and clinks it. And me and my friend who went to see it, we just sat in the stands until he was like, you gotta go, we need to clean up, you gotta leave now, because we could not move. We were shaken. And afterwards we were drinking our wine and sitting there gobsmacked and speechless. So, would rewatch in a heartbeat? Yes, but if there was a tier that was above that, it would be on that tier, because what was that experience? Okay, so here we've got an orchestra playing Vivaldi The Four Seasons because I love classical music. If you don't know this about me, I play a classical music instrument, and so classical music is just a big part of who I am, and so I love to go and see an orchestra. And last year I went to see a string orchestra in a hall, and they played some of Vivaldi's Four Seasons, and it's beautiful. It's a beautiful piece, and all the violinists, oh my goodness, they slayed. They slayed it. They just did it so very well. And seeing the first chair, I believe, just like she was, let me tell you, that won't work out. And I was really, really impressed with that, and I would say it goes straight into an amazing performance. I have seen a lot of live music played, but I've never actually gone and seen and sat down and watched an orchestra. It's often been in a musical, I can see the orchestra playing, or I've been part of that orchestra as someone who plays an instrument, rather than actually me going and seeing a professional orchestra play. So it was a lovely first experience. It was also one of the first times that I was just like, I want to see something, and nobody else that I know is interested in going to see it, so I'm going to go by myself. And so that experience made it very special for me, because I just went and saw a show by myself for the first time. And so that leads on to the next thing, which is Letters Live, which is something I went to with work, and it ties into the Letters of Note series that we publish. And in the Letters Live in the Royal Albert Hall every year, a group of celebrities come and they read letters that people have written. And some of these letters are funny and silly, and then some of these letters are really serious, and some of them are emotional, some of them are to like people who have passed away, or some of them are to friends that they've never seen again, but then some of them are like a letter of complaint to the always pads people for taking away the wings from pads and stuff like that. So you get a wide range, and you get a wide range of celebs reading. There was Benedict Cumberbatch and Graham Norton, and also an author that I really like called Hassan Akkad, who I was impressed with his memoir in 2021. So I'm going to put that in enjoyable, because it wasn't like, would I have gone if I hadn't gone with work? No, but it was still an enjoyable experience and I had a good time. We're on Six now. So Six is a musical that I've heard a lot about. It's following the wives of Henry VIII, and they make a competition, and the person with the best song in the competition is going to win the competition, but the competition has to be about who was wronged the most by being Henry VIII's wife. And I kind of knew the like main song from this beforehand, because it's just such a popular musical, and so my expectations were really high, and I had a good time. And I added 2 songs from the musical to my playlist. Usually I add quite a few, if not the whole album. So I'm going to put it in enjoyable, because it was a good musical, but it was not the musical for me. I think it's one of those cases where it's so good, but if you are interested in history, you're going to love it even more. And I'm not interested in history, but I'm not really a fan of English monarchy history. I have no interest in English monarchy history, and I know they were doing something new with it, and they were making it feminist and kind of changing up the story a bit. Even then, it was not enough to make me care about English monarchy history. I just really don't care about that subject in any way or form. So it just was enjoyable to me. But I have a feeling that if you're someone who is vaguely, even like have a glimmer of interest in English history, you will be able to appreciate this even more and love it. Like, for example, I think Simone is going to love this, whereas I think things like my love of Shakespeare points to my experience of Anne Juliet even more. Now we're going to Lion King, the musical. So I love the Lion King film. I've watched it many, many times, as you do. It's one of the best Disney films, and I've been meaning to see the musical for a very, very long time, and I went for my birthday with 4 of my friends, so it was like a nice birthday celebration, and we went to my favourite dumpling place afterwards in Chinatown, and it was a really, really good way to celebrate my birthday with my friends. And actually I think I've got a vlog of this, but yeah, I really liked The Lion King. I did think it was going to be even better than it was, but I had a very good time with it. The costumes were amazing, and I have to say the best thing about it were the animals and the ways in which the human actors morphed into being the animals. I thought that was just so creatively and cleverly done. So I'm going to put it in enjoyable. I feel like I'm such a harsh judge today, but I'm going to put it in enjoyable because it was a really good time and I really, really liked it, but it's not my favourite musical that I saw. Then I'm going to go to Saturn Returns, and this this was again something I saw in Brixton House, so like a short run production, and it was a spoken word poem that was enacted and brought to life with dance and movement and sound, and it was about capitalism and the ways in which black bodies labour and repeat the same labours, but also by functioning within capitalism we are breaking down some of the elements of our culture, we're breaking down some of the elements of who we are and the ways in which we would live our lives if we were not forced into a society created capitalism that has been given and forced onto our cultures. So that's what that one was about, and it was enjoyable. I'm going to put it in enjoyable because it was really, really good, and I loved the way that the movement was incorporated into the spoken word poetry, and how we had two characters here, the man and the woman, who were speaking the poetry and dancing and really bringing it to life with their body movements. Fascinating. And I really liked that the poetry that they were speaking was shown on a screen, so you could also follow it that way, because the poetry was quite an integral part of the story. But after seeing Breathing by Numbers, like I saw Saturn Returns first and I was like, that was fantastic. But then I saw Breathing by Numbers and I was like, actually, that was just good in comparison. So that's where that's going. Oh, get up, stand up. Well, stand up to talk about this one. So this one is a musical and it's all about Bob Marley's life. So it's talking about Bob Marley growing up and then becoming who he is, him with his group at first and then him with his wife, into his political activism and or non-political activism, you could argue. And it was so good. It was so good, from the way that all of it was spoken in like patois, so it was kind of like true to that, into the ways it delved into his life, and I learned things about Bob Marley that I didn't know before, into the singing, which of course was good because it was all reggae tunes. I had the best time with this, and I do have to say that the woman who plays his wife stole the show. I have, you know, one of my favourite Bob Marley songs is No Woman No Cry. He has loads of iconic ones, but that is one of my favourite ones, and I have to say, she sang it better than Bob Marley did. I've never heard a rendition of No Woman No Cry that was so beautiful that made me want to cry internally, because I'm not a crier, but there we go. Would rewatch in a heartbeat. Okay, so we're down to the last 6 that we have here. So next up we're going to go to My Fair Lady, which I watched alone. And I thought this was just an enjoyable performance, but it didn't captivate me as much as I hoped it would. I was not familiar with the musical itself. I'd read the play Pygmalion, so I knew that it was a musical that was inspired by Pygmalion. And while I loved all of the Pygmalion story bits, so the actual story and acting and play part of the musical, I didn't quite like the musical numbers as much, other than the song that went like Lovely and also the like Night to Remember kind of style song. I didn't actually add a single song to my playlist after seeing the musical, which is incredibly rare. That basically never happens to me, and I just thought the songs weren't that great. They weren't that memorable, and I just enjoyed the acting, which kind of gave me the impression that what I should actually go and see is a play of Pygmalion rather than My Fair Lady. I went to go and see Moulin Rouge with my older sister who loves the film, and I'd seen the film many years ago when I was far too young. I believe I was 8 or 9 when I saw the musical, so I didn't really rate it. But then I rewatched it this Christmas for the first time rewatching it, and I realised that I probably was way too young to have seen that musical, because there was so much I probably didn't understand. But even then, when I saw that musical when I was younger, the song Roxanne stood out to me, and I've had it on my playlist ever since I was like 9, because I thought it was a fantastic song. And I love a good mashup. One of my favourite songs in the Anne Juliet musical actually is a mashup. And this Moulin Rouge, it knew how to do mashups really well, because of course Moulin Rouge is a jukebox musical as well, which takes modern day songs and puts them into the musical, but it takes it one step further in this live version of the musical that I went to see, and it just did a very good job of incorporating some of the newer songs into the musical in a way that fit and did well. There was a love song section which I thought was mishmashing a bit too much, and that was a bit over the top, but other than that I loved every single song that they decided to include. The person who sang Satine sang absolutely beautifully, but the person who stole the show for me was the guy who plays the main character, the male guy, I can't even remember his name. He was fantastic. He did such a good job of having the American accent and all of his songs. Like, his singing was amazing. It was better than, you know, Obi-Wan Kenobi, who plays him in Moulin Rouge. His singing was like actually genuinely good. I was a bit upset that they gave the song Roxanne to him because he has the lighter voice that suits his role, whereas the person who plays the Latin American character had a much deeper, gravelier voice, and I think he could have done Roxanne like it's supposed to be in the musical, but I don't know why they gave it to this other guy, which made me a bit sad because that was my favourite song and it was lacking in the musical because they gave it to the wrong person who didn't have quite the vocals for the gravelly undertone it needed to have. But other than that, I had such amazing time with it, and I have to say the set, I didn't even mention the set and the costumes were stunning. The set was like a red room. I think I was vlogging while I was here as well for some reason, but the red room set was absolutely amazing and it was just so on theme. I also went to see the Mousetrap, again with the same sister. This is the longest running play in the UK. It's Agatha Christie play. Agatha Christie wrote this play and it's her mystery, and this was an amazing performance. I loved it. I love a good Agatha Christie book. She's one of my favourite crime fiction writers. I love Golden Circle era crime fiction, and The Mousetrap was just clever. It was really well acted, and I loved all of the characters and their particular roles and how quickly and easily they embodied them. It's set all in the same room, but it was effortless. But I have to say the best play that I saw this year goes to 222. So in the UK, the casting for this play has changed quite a lot. When I went to see it, it was the crew that was the original one with Tom Felton in it. So I was quite happy I saw them because all four of those actors knocked this horror play out of the park. It's set in a house and the mum is kind of convinced that the house is haunted. At 2:22, she hears footsteps going around her child who is sleeping upstairs. And it's about these four friends, and they all come over for like a friendly dinner. They've been friends for a very long time, and then when they are there, she's like, you should stay until 2:22 because I want you to see it. And it is clever. It is a clever play. It's one of those plays that I watched it all the way through, and then I got to the end and I was like, that was smart, but I was still thinking about the play the next day and seeing all of the lead up and all of the clues and things that they left to get to that conclusion. And the more you think about the play, the more you see what they did there, and it's just so smart in that way, and I appreciate it. I appreciate smart writing, and I appreciated how good the acting was and how all of these characters felt so individual and played them so well. Also, because it's a horror play, it's got some creepy elements to it, and it did them well. I think it's really hard to be scary on stage, and it did it well. And so I'm just going to skip over the ballet there to The Woman in Black, which is also a horror play. And I have to say, I don't think this one did it as well. It was still a decent watch. I'm going to put it in enjoyable, but it wasn't my favourite. And that is because I think the longer it went on, the less scary it became. I did see my sister like flinch and jump scare a bit. I'm not one of those people. No jump scares for me in any of them. My friend that I went to see 222 with literally screamed. I did not. But I could see that like Tamara had a few flinches and stuff with The Woman in Black. But the more you got acquainted with the character of The Woman in Black, the less scary it became. And so what The Woman in Black is about this like accountant guy who goes to this house after someone has died, and he needs to kind of set all the papers straight and set everything straight. But none of the people in the town want to go near the house for some reason, and as he goes there and goes into the house to kind of find the papers that he needs, strange occurrences happen. But it's kind of told in this way where it's like somebody recounting their history, and the framing of the play just took too long to get started. It took a very long time setting up the way in which they were going to tell the story rather than getting to the story itself. And I think that beginning part really lost me because it was a bit stale at the beginning while they were setting everything up. And I can see why it did it in the way that it did it, and it ties into the story, but it just took a bit too long. It's also a two-person cast, so not quite a one-woman play, but two men. And I have to say, in terms of the acting, the old man phenomenal. There's one person who's playing the same character all the way through, and the old man plays all the other secondary characters, and his acting is so good because each character he transformed into, I was 100% sold. I 100% believed him in that role, and he just took on all these very different characters effortlessly. So that was stunning to watch. So in terms of like craftsmanship, it was some of the best craftsmanship work that I'd seen in terms of acting, but as the story itself, it didn't quite bring enough fear. And so we're gonna end on Swan Lake. I went to see this ballet with a friend, and I have really wanted to go and see Swan Lake. There were two ballets that I wanted to see, Nutcracker and Swan Lake, and half of the reason I wanted to see them is because like I love a good ballet, I want to see a good ballet, but the other half is the music. Nutcracker, which I went to see this year, so I'm not reviewing it now, but that has some of my favourite it has my favourite classical piece in it ever. Also Swan Lake has some of my favourite pieces too, and so I was enamoured. I was enamoured. I was listening to the music and it was taking me to different places, and I was also watching the ballet, and it was just, it's one of those ballets that feels a bit more technical, as in there is storyline to it, but there's also a lot of performing elements to it where it's trying to show some of the very etiquette ballet things, and there's the most technically difficult twist and turn that a ballerina can do in Swan Lake, and I have to say, seeing that was kind of magnificent. It was amazing, and the person who watched it was doing it fantastically. So I'm going to say it's an amazing performance because the costumes were amazing, the set was amazing, the ballet was amazing, and the music was amazing. Our seats were the ones where you don't get to see the orchestra as you see the ballet, which was fine. I did get to hear it, but I also want to really see an orchestra play Swan Lake, so at some point I'm going to just watch an orchestra do it. So there we have it. Basically, the Rotten Tomatoes and disappointed segments, they didn't need to be there because I did not see anything that was awful. I saw so many things that became like favourite performances, and I also saw a lot of truly amazing performances. And I just feel blessed to be in London and live here so I can see this many theatre productions. I know the US also is big on theatre, but it's something the UK just does incredibly well. I would like to see more Shakespeare in 2023. I did see quite a lot of like Shakespeare mashup things, but I'd love to see some more stuff by the RSC themselves. And I've got a list of plays, I've got a list of musicals, and I've already seen my first ballet this year. I have some more that I want to see. Oh, and I'm almost booking an orchestra that I'm going to play some of the Nutcracker and Swan Lake songs, so I just get to watch the music. Anyway, that's a story for another day. Thank you for joining me on my birthday with this video. Please let me know in the comment section down below, do you enjoy going to the theatre or to any type of performance? And if you have, what's one of the best ones you've ever seen? Please give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you want to see more, and don't forget to hit that notification bell to be updated every time I have a new video. I'm 24, I'm way too happy. I need to go to bed. Have a good night. Actually, that's not what we say to end. You know what they say, when you're 24, onwards and upwards. Excelsior!